you know that the marine biome is the largest of all biomes?
Today we will be talking about the marine biome, what it is, its problems, and its solutions.
We will first do an overview about the marine biome, its abiotic and biotic factors, and important cycles.
The biotic factors include components such as seaweed, turtles, fish, whales, which are all living. Abiotic factors include components such as temperature, sunlight, oxygen levels, and salinity, which are non-living, but they still affect the biotic factors.
Now we will talk about the biogeochemical cycles, which are crucial for the biome's function. For example, the nitrogen and carbon cycle. The nitrogen cycle is a reactive cycle in which through living and non-living things, for example, plants, animals, the atmosphere, water, and bacteria. In order to do that, nitrogen has to change forms.
The carbon cycle is a process that moves carbon through animals, plants, and microbes, as well as the earth and the atmosphere. In the marine biome, carbon dioxide is taken up by photosynthesis and is dissolved in the water. So now let's talk about two issues that harm the marine biome:
Plastic pollution and overfishing.
Now I will be talking about a devastating global issue that is greatly affecting the rich ecosystem that is our oceans: plastic pollution. First of all, what is plastic pollution? Plastic pollution is the harmful accumulation of synthetic plastic products in the environment. The evidence on its effect in our oceans is undeniable. Plastic pollution has impacted at least 700 species worldwide, including 86% of all sea turtle species and 44% of all marine mammal species. Since plastic does not biodegrade, it takes 1,000 years to break down, so it builds up in the environment. It harms marine animals through ingestion, entanglement, and habitat destruction. As animals mistake plastic for food, it can lead to choking and even death. It can restrict movement and introduce toxins into the marine environment, impacting entire ecosystems. Abiotic factors like sunlight are also affected. Floating plastics can form a layer on the surface of the water, blocking sunlight from reaching deeper levels, disrupting photosynthesis and the marine food chain. This issue can also greatly perturb the carbon cycle. Plastics are derived from fossil fuels, so their production and degradation releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere as well as in the water. This can affect the balance of carbon cycling in marine ecosystems. The root of this problem lies in irresponsible waste management practices, with industrial and domestic waste from urban areas being major contributors. Plastic litter is not collected and dealt with by recycling, but it is simply discarded into the environment. 80% of marine plastic pollution originates from land-based sources, and 20% is caused by ocean-based sources, such as fishing, shipping, and agriculture. The future ramifications of plastic pollution are dire. It is predicted that by 2050 there will be more plastic than fish in the world's oceans. There will also be an increased damage to the environment, wildlife, greater risk to human health, and more greenhouse gas emissions. It will also alter habitats and natural processes, reducing ecosystems' ability to adapt to climate change, directly affecting millions of people's livelihoods, food production capabilities, and social well-being. Now I will tell you about the solutions being done and what you can do to help. There are many things being done to solve the problem. The most high-profile effort to clean up ocean plastic is the Ocean Cleanup, a Dutch non-profit organization whose goal is to get rid of 90% of floating plastic pollution in the ocean. There's also been new social plastic policies and laws implemented for this issue. More than 60 nations have taken steps to reduce single-use plastics through bans or taxes, according to the UN. In the US, there has been the National Recycling Strategy, with a goal to increase US recycling rate to 50% by 2030. But what can an individual do to make a difference? Reduce the usage of single-use plastics. We must recycle plastics that can be reused and recycled. Spread awareness of plastic water pollution, and use the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. And where does science take place in all this? The Ocean Cleanup Interceptor uses solar power technology and water to its advantage to redirect plastic waste to a conveyor belt that transfers the waste to a proper disposal site. Scientists are also using GPS tracking and NASA's satellite system to be able to determine plastic sources to know where the plastic is entering the oceans. Another area of research for ocean scientists is developing ways to turn plastic waste into energy. A way to do this is plastic pyrolysis, a controversial process. Researchers have used pyrolysis to convert plastic into formic acid, a chemical that generates electricity in power plants and electric cars. As previously mentioned, there are many benefits to pyrolysis. However, there are also limitations. Even though pyrolysis is an effective way to convert plastic waste to clean energy and reduces greenhouse gas emissions that comes from plastic, it can come at a great cost. Plastic pyrolysis equipment can cost anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000. Not only that, many argue that only a small amount of this clean fuel is generated from such a large amount of material. Lastly, we will talk about how science contributing to plastic pollution can affect us socially and environmentally. Through advanced technology like satellite imagery, we can determine sources of plastic and tracking changes over time. This can help in targeted cleanup efforts to protect marine environments and the wildlife they contain. Not only that, processes like pyrolysis can help preserve ocean health by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and environmental pollution that is associated with plastic waste. Socially, new technologies like the ocean cleanup can benefit human communities living alongside the interceptors, since some societies rely on the river for their livelihoods and resources. Additionally, by preventing plastic waste from contaminating soil, water, and air, we mitigate health risks that are associated with plastic exposure.
Did you know that overfishing not only depletes target species but also disrupts the balance of the marine biome? Let's take a deeper look of one of the mightiest problems that affects the whole ecosystem. So first we are going to answer the question what overfishing is. Overfishing is the unsustainable practice of catching fish at a rate faster than they can reproduce, leading to declines in fish populations, disruptions in marine ecosystems, and threats to the food security and livelihoods. According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organizations, nearly 60% of all marine fish stocks are overexploited, recovering, or depleted. Overfishing is also mainly caused by poor fish management and the lack of regulation in open seas, allowing for illegal fishing. As well as more fish consumers, fishing boats, poor fish management, rising demand for fish, and climate change.
Overfishing disturbs the balance of both biotic and abiotic factors in the marine ecosystem. Fish populations go down, leaving predators hungry and interrupting the food chain. This loss of biodiversity weakens the ecosystem resilience. Destructive fishing practices also tear up the seafloor, harming habitats and affecting the water quality.
Moving on, we are going to show you the possible effects of overfishing. First, we have the lack of foods for bigger fish, then disruption in the food chain, emptier oceans, loss of jobs and food for humans in countries that have fishing as their economy, and the impact on the climate change. Now we are shifting our focus about solutions and, more importantly, what we can do against overfishing. First, governments can create more marine protected areas. They are minimally, lightly, highly protected and fully protected areas. As 99% of the oceans are high seas, there needs to be an increase in marine protected areas so fishing can't disturb the natural habitats of many marine species. Next, we have regulations on fishing nets, where government sets limits for fishing gear, restrictions, fishing licenses, and permits. Governments can also introduce new rules to preserve oceans. And now, what can an individual do to help? We can reduce food waste, choose more sustainable seafood, don't eat the same fish type every time, buy eco-friendly products, educate yourself about this topic, and much more. Now we are going to talk about how science helps against this problem. First, we have fish tagging. This is the process of marking a fish, releasing it into the water again, and recapture it. This uses molecular genetic techniques to mark released fish and measure differences among wild populations and hatchery stocks. Next, we have genetic analysis. Genetic techniques such as DNA, barcoding, and population genetics can help identify different fish species and track them. This is valuable to manage fisheries. There are also other technologies like underwater cameras and video analysis, but also, for example, AIS, which stands for Automatic Identification System, which is a tracking system that can be used to detect illegal fishing to be able to prevent overfishing. This allows more transparency at sea. But there are also problems with science. For example, equipment can be rather expensive. That's why we now list some techniques against overfishing where no science is needed. For example, there could be more regulations for fishing nets and marine protected areas and more restricted areas, imposing a ban on fishing on international waters. This would work because 99% of international waters do not belong to a single country, meaning most oceans are unprotected. Now we're going to talk about how science helping this issue affects us socially and environmentally. Socially, science prevents economic collapse and protects jobs. By, for example, setting sustainable catch limits, science stops overfishing. This keeps fishing industries afloat, protects the livelihoods of fishermen and fishing communities that rely on a healthy ocean. Environmentally, science helps set regulations that prevent the decline of marine life. This protects the food web, safeguards endangered species, and promotes biodiversity, which is crucial for the overall ocean's health.